Hey everyone, it's Lisa with Are You My Cousin? And I'm here for a Facebook YouTube Live today. And as you can see, I have Mary Eberle of DNA Hunters with me. Hey Mary, it's good to have you again with me.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here.
I always love to have you here because I always learn so much from talking about DNA things with you. For those of you, if you haven't met Mary yet, Mary is the owner and creator over at DNA Hunters, and she is my DNA experts who I go to with all my questions. So we're glad to have you. So as you're coming in, let's give people just a few minutes to kind of find us here. Let us know where you're watching from. Hey, Danny's here again. Thank you so much. So glad that you enjoyed coming for our discussions. Danny's from Ohio. Hey, Robert from Southern California, and Amy from Willamette Valley in Oregon. So we're kind of all over. If we are just meeting, if you are just finding the Facebook Live or YouTube Live for the first time, I am Lisa. I am the creator at Are You My Cousin, and coming to you from North Carolina. And I'm all about helping you find your ancestors, grow your family tree, and most importantly, not get overwhelmed in the process. I've certainly been overwhelmed in the process, but I've been working my way through that. So we're glad everybody could join us here. Hey, Katie, good to see you again, Katie, in June. Yay. And Catherine is here from West Tennessee. Yes. So super excited that you guys are joining, whether you're joining from YouTube or whether you're joining us from Facebook. We're absolutely thrilled to have you. Okay, so a little bit about what's happening at Are You My Cousin recently. We're kind of in the summer months. I've been really a lot in creator mode, as opposed to, you haven't seen me quite as much live, but I have been continuing to put out new videos over on the YouTube channel. One went out this week. It's one about creating research plans, and I walk you through kind of my updated spreadsheet that I use when I make a research plan. So I'd love for you to head over there and watch that. Creating research plans isn't the real exciting kinds of videos to watch, because it's, I always get more excited about getting into new records and finding new resources for my ancestors. But truly, without the basis, without having a good foundation and having a good solid plan, my research isn't going to go well. It usually means I am going to get distracted. I'm going to miss clues. I'm going to end up backtracking a lot. So it is important that we as researchers, at whatever level research you do, that we have some type of plan. And guys, I'm going to let you in on a secret. They don't have to be super ornate or overly complicated. Sometimes, I'll be honest, I've gone out with my research plan is really just handwritten down on a piece of paper. As long as I have something, as long as I have that plan that gets me going. Because sometimes, if I'm only researching, if I only have an hour's worth of time to research, I just need a short plan to go. So I talk about research plans over there. I'd love for you to hop over there. Oh, thank you, Jean. That makes me feel really good. Jean said, nice job on the research plan video. I appreciate your kind words. Thank you so much. Okie doke. So we've got definitely new videos coming out each week. Coming over there. Love it if you are on YouTube, if you would subscribe, that would be really great. It helps my YouTube channel, but it also lets you be notified when videos come out. And also, just to let you know, if you're not really kind of a YouTube fan, you can actually, I also create a blog post along with the video. So you can also find a version of the video as well as the written blog post over on the website. So you can look at it either place. It's perfectly fine. Oh, Katie, you've never had a plan. That is okay, Katie. She's never researched with a plan. And you know what? You are not the only one. I can guarantee it. And I didn't for a long time. Yes, I didn't for a long time until I finally, because I think I always felt like I was in high school. It's like, I've got to have a plan. You got to have an outline, all of that. I don't know about you, Mary, but I felt like that. So, but once I kind of got the plan and realized how I could be so much more efficient, because face it, when I'm going to the archives, if I'm going out of town to go research, I want to make sure I am being super efficient with my time, because I want to save time. I want to save money. So maybe that can make the difference between spending the night and not spending the night, because I can find what I need to find either online, or I can just be super efficient and have it planned and pulled ahead of time. All right, that's another video. We're here to talk DNA questions. So thank you so much for joining. Mary is going to be answering some DNA questions. We asked for folks to pre-submit if possible, their DNA questions. And so we have about 4 or 5 questions that people have submitted. So we're going to go through those first. And then as time allows, we will answer questions. So if you didn't submit a question, feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat. And if, as time allows, we will then address those as possible. And if we can't get them live, then perhaps we can answer them on the back end as well. So just go ahead and put those in. All right. June says she does both with a plan and sometimes with that rabbit hole grabs you. Yep, I've been down a few rabbit holes. Went down one last night. Okay, back to DNA. All right. So Mary, thank you so much for joining us. And I will be posting the questions up here on the screen for folks. And some of them I'm having to condense a little bit because they're kind of long, guys, but not a problem. We've got it covered. All right, Mary, I'm going to hand it off to you on our questions and let you start where you'd like to.
Okay. How about question number 1?
That works. Go ahead and answer. While I'm trying to get it up on the screen, but you can go ahead and start.
Sure. So
it'll take me a moment.
Sure, no problem. And thanks everybody for joining us today. The first question was, why do my DNA results differ between Ancestry and 23andMe? And this is a really common question. And part of the answer has to do with the fact that we get 2 different kinds of DNA results. We get the ethnicity estimates, and we get our DNA matches. And starting out with the matches, those are going to be a different set of matches at every company because it's only the people who've tested at that specific company. So of course there's overlap, and we can oftentimes figure out like, oh, this is my cousin so-and-so. She tested at Ancestry, but she also tested at 23andMe. Going back to the first kind of results, which are the ethnicity estimates, and I'm assuming that the question was asked to focus more on this aspect, right? Because you get your ethnicity estimates back. You have, what you think your ethnicity estimate should be based on your tree, based on your family stories, and the different companies tell you a different percents. Lisa, did that happen to you? Have you seen that?
Absolutely. I'll get different percents, or, and then of course the ethnicity percentages change even within the same database as well. Definitely.
Right. They'll update, a specific company will update their ethnicity estimates. They might add in more people to their reference panel. So each company has their own reference panel, which are known individuals with known quote unquote ethnicities. Typically, this is not that far back in time. So it might be that the grandparents all came from within so many miles of each other, or something like that. So they have to pick people to represent what is typically called ethnicities, and so each company has their own ethnicity their own reference panel, and then on top of that, each company has their own algorithm or way of analyzing your DNA results and comparing it to that reference panel, and so that also can cause differences. There are also 2 main ways to look at and analyze the DNA for ethnicity, and one is where they're just looking at places on your DNA, and they're just place 1, place 700,000, place 235, kind of random.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is they're looking at, they call it like the train method, because they're looking at chunks. So it's like the little cars on the train, and they're saying, oh, well, this chunk of DNA or sequence, we've seen that, and it appears, for example, in Jewish people,
okay,
or Asian people, or whatever their categories are. So that also leads to these big differences.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that.
Mhm. And historically, 23andMe was the only one that did that train car method. But Ancestry recently changed that.
Okay. And are we seeing different? So if I should go in to see it like before and after they changed their method, would I see differences in my breakdowns because of that?
That
Okay.
although that happened a couple of years ago.
Okay. Actually, I think I'm wondering if I know when that happened because I saw a really big change that happened at one point. So yeah. Okay.
Yep. And like another example is in terms of like having differences in their reference panels, even one company, the same company, and that is like Ancestry used to have a Scandinavian category,
Okay.
but today they have a separate Norwegian. That's one category, and then Sweden and Denmark together is a second category.
Right.
So they're telling us that they have the ability to differentiate Norwegians from Swedes and Danish people. And how accurate that is, I think is debatable. Just based on my own results. So
Yeah.
lots of reasons that you'll get different results at different companies.
That makes sense. All right. Well, thank you. Okay, that clears that part up. All right. What's our next one up?
The next one is the why DNA question.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I've got it. Okay, so this is the short version, guys. Mary's going to give us the long version of the question.
Okay.
Because this is a long question.
So the long version, the way I understand it, and if the people who've asked the questions are on this call, feel free to clarify in the comments. But the question, I believe, is that the person did a Y-DNA test, so they've got a Y-DNA haplotype, and that is an I haplotype. So just one of the kinds that we might have. And at the same time, the male descendants of his great-grandfather's male siblings have a different haplotype. So from this, it appears that maybe his great-grandmother had children with two different men. Okay, so the question comes down to basically, how do you figure out who that great-grandfather's biological father was? Okay, so I'm assuming that this is on the person's father's line, that direct male line, and that he's basically looking for his second great-grandfather. He's matching the descendants of the great-grandmother. So that is a very important point, because one of the other explanations for this is that break in that Y-DNA chain might have happened more recently, right? So let's say your grandfather is not your biological grandfather, and but because he's matching the descendants of the spouse, then it looks like the break is at that great grandparent or great grandfather level. Okay. So does that make sense so far? Okay.
Oh, could you explain a little bit more as you're talking about the haplogroups, and like we have a question about that in the group, which I don't know if it would be answered best here or a little bit later, but because this one involves the haplogroups, so I was just curious.
Well, actually, as I was reading this just now, I was thinking, I think this person meant to say, he's got an I haplogroup, and that the other descendants have a different one, a Q, haplogroup. I read it the way it's written, which is haplotype.
That makes more sense. Okay.
So I don't know if that clarifies the question. I mean, the question that came up in the comments, if something came up. So, so this is interesting. The Y DNA led to this discovery that the great grandfather might have a different father than his siblings. And if the person who asked the question tested at family tree DNA, well, one place I would start in terms of trying to figure out, who was the originator of this haplogroup that he possesses, would be to look at his Y DNA matches.
Right.
Because maybe there's about a 30 to 40% chance that he's going to be able to see a single surname in his match list. That means there's a 60 to 70% chance that that's not going to be the case.
Right.
That, he's going to get multiple surnames, which, there are lots of reasons for that. But, now that we're trying to figure out, well, who is this missing person that was discovered through the Y DNA testing? That would be the first place I would look. And then I would look at the autosomal DNA matches. And it's easiest to work with those on Ancestry. But if you also have tested at family tree DNA, that would be helpful. Or you can transfer into there. But you're basically going to be trying to identify who are your matches that come from a specific branch of your family tree. And then which of them can you not assign? So and these would be, if we're looking for an unknown second great grandfather, these would be third cousins.
Okay. So how you match with that third cousin, and if you can't assign them, excuse me, then there's a good chance they came off that line that you're not
right
sure about. So so let me make sure. So the first thing for them to do is to look at their Y DNA matches and determine if there is a single surname or maybe one, or a couple surnames that they can identify with, and then compare that to their autosomal matches, both either at Family Tree or over at Ancestry or one of the others.
Right. Or other clues in this is really interesting. I hadn't thought about this, but based on what you said, there can be clues in that Y DNA match list. So, for example, there's not one surname, but every surname is an Irish surname. Well, then, there's a very good chance that missing second great grandfather was an Irish man.
Okay. Gotcha.
That kind of thing. Can you see any surname hints or location hints? Because it might also tell you where they're from.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes actually a lot of sense. Perfect. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, good question.
All right. So the next question is about, William asked about his mother who was born in 1912 to an unwed mother with the father unknown. And can you find his name via DNA?
So this sounds like an unknown grandfather through his
no, unknown father.
Unknown my mother.
The father's unknown. Yeah. My mother was born in 1912. Oh, yeah. You're right. To an unwed mother. You're right. Unknown grandfather. Excuse me, guys. I totally messed that one up.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, it's, it's easier to think about these things when they're written, when they're diagrammed out.
Right.
Right. But yeah. So, and did you say a man asked this question?
Mm-hmm.
And so we could not. So definitely in most cases, you should be able to figure out who the unknown father is, who's actually his unknown grandfather, because it's his mom's father. Okay. And sometimes we're able to narrow it down to a set of brothers, and who would have been in the right place in probably 1911 if the mom was born in 1912. And for this, I would build a tree for the person. The unwed mother, it sounds like she is a known person, right? So we have 3 out of the 4 grandparents are known,
right?
And this is, I would do this in Ancestry, and I would build back those trees to, I would say, about the people born about 1750, 1775.
Okay.
So now you've got your tree, the known bits of it, and if you attach your DNA to yourself in that tree, I just double checked. I assume the mom is deceased because she was born in 1912.
I would assume so.
So we can't, unfortunately, we can't use her DNA.
Right.
But using his as the grandchild, now we're going to do what I was talking about in the last question, which is to figure out who are my known cousins, who, are parts of this, who share the ancestors in that 3/4 of the tree that you know to be correct.
Gotcha.
So now you're going to be left with people who cannot be assigned to one of your known branches. And hopefully they have trees, and hopefully they have names, like their names. That's not always the case, where they might be using their initials. They might have a tree, but it's private. So a lot of times we're building out, we're doing detective work to figure out who is this test taker. Okay. And we're using like Google and Facebook, and I use Been Verified. I really like that because it'll tell you people's addresses and relatives, and sometimes there are clues in there, right? Like I was just working a very similar case with an unknown grandfather, and I had worked those unknown matches, and I knew, like, they're all a bunch of Norwegians.
Right.
Okay. And I knew some surnames that the Norwegians shared. And then I had the highest unknown test taker. He had his name. It was a French name. He could, I'm sure he was an American, but just he had a very, when I looked at it, I thought, he's got a French name. This is interesting. And I thought it was pretty unique. So I thought, oh, I'll just look him up on Been Verified, and fingers crossed, there's only one of him in this country. Right. Well, there were like 10.
Oh.
So I put that aside, but then a little while later, I went back and I thought, like, darn it, like, I want to figure out, now that I know about the Norwegians, and now that I know a few of those surnames, I was looking at the different possibilities, these 10 guys, and one of them had a relative, a male relative whose middle name was one of those Norwegian surnames.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I got it. I
Getting
got him.
close.
I got him. And I could build his tree. And I'm like, oh, like that was the thing that just poof, everything made sense.
Yeah.
After I did that detective work and the genealogy, to build his tree. And then it was like, bam, 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 bam. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's very doable.
Cool. Now, somebody asked a question about the been verified site. Is that free?
It
or
is
is that,
not.
do you have a subscription? Or is there a free part of it?
I don't think there's a free part of it.
Okay.
It's about $69 every 6 months.
Okay.
And it's my favorite. It's besides Google and all the free ones, it's the one I use.
Okay.
And it works for the United States. It does not work for Canada or other countries.
Okay, that's good. Well, that's good to know too. Definitely. Okay, doke. Yay. Okay, doke. What's the next one here? Do you want to tackle that long one?
Sure.
This is another long question, guys. It talks about the most recent common ancestor. So yeah, go for it, Mary. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll let you condense it down.
Okay. So someone asked a question. They said that their wife has a match on MyHeritage to a cousin that appears to be maybe a third cousin or a second cousin once removed, although it could be more distant. They're only sharing 43.6 centimorgans. So that could be a fifth cousin, a sixth cousin, something really far out. But okay, let's continue. So he has the match has an unknown birth father, and the wife is from Holland. Okay, the match believes that his unknown birth father is also from Holland. That he is a Dutchman. Okay, so we've got these two matching at MyHeritage. They've also uploaded to GEDmatch, so they're matching there. And there are several matches at MyHeritage that the question asker can fit into the wife's tree. So they know the branch of the tree where the match with the unknown father should fit in. And then they're wondering if they have enough information already to figure out who the MRCA, the most recent common ancestor couple, is. And what should we do next? And I would say that if those shared matches, if they're pointing to one branch of your wife's tree, then the exact common ancestor, the ancestor that she has in common with them, should be identifiable. But that doesn't necessarily mean that is the common ancestor to this match with the unknown father.
Okay.
It could be, let's just say, one generation up the tree. Right? That these, everybody's cousins with each other, they're shared matches, but some of the shared matches could be sharing, one ancestral couple because they're all second cousins. But if this man with the unknown birth father is a third cousin, then he would be sharing the couple one generation up.
Right.
So it's really good to know that, what line of the tree is important. And that's great that you know that. If I were trying to solve this case, one of the things would be to have this person with the unknown birth father, for him to be on board, because it's his question, right?
Right.
And because I would want access to his DNA, and I would want to see how much DNA he's sharing with these cousins. And then I would also want him to test at Ancestry. Ancestry has the largest database of people who've tested. It's 20 million people. In this case, it's a little bit tougher because we have a foreign birth father. So I think MyHeritage is a great place for him to be looking.
Yeah.
I would want to be able to see his matches at MyHeritage to see how good those are. Because typically you need like a second cousin match in order to figure out an unknown parent situation.
Gotcha.
So it looks like the wife is not a second cousin. So hopefully he's got some matches at MyHeritage. The first place to look to figure things out would be him analyzing his MyHeritage matches, and if there weren't enough to figure it out there, then I would suggest that he tested at Ancestry, and they might have fewer foreign people, like in terms of percents, but there's a chance that that there are, if nothing else, descendants of people.
That's true. Yeah.
Database.
Yeah. And it is larger. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Okay. Well, thank you. Does that one wrap that one up?
Mm-hmm.
All right. We have one more that was pre-submitted. Then we can take the ones from we have some in the comments. So the next one had to do with some a mystery on a family secret and a shared centimorgan. So I will. Oh, Robert, who that last question just chimed in. He says, also, wife and cousin are near the same age, but wife was born late. Late in her family, maybe. Okay.
Right. So just because people are the same age, and I think you're pointing this out, Robert, that it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not in a once removed or a twice removed situation.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. All right. So, Mary, I'll let you talk about that, the 335 centimorgans, and then we can share my screen and we can show folks what you and I were talking about earlier.
Okay. Okay. Well, this person says that she's got a match at 335 centimorgans. That she knows it's on her mystery branch that she thinks has a family secret back to her grandfather. And she's trying to figure out how this match might fit into this mystery. And Lisa and I want to share with you the shared centimorgan project tool.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen, guys. Give me just 1 second to pull it up here. Chrome tab. I think, nope. There it is. Yep, there it is. Okay, can you guys see that okay? Let me just look and make sure everybody sees. Yep. Okay, good. It sees. Okay. All right. Talk us through it, Mary.
Okay. So with the shared centimorgan project tool, you can enter how much DNA is shared with your match in the window at the top. So if you type in 335,
Mhm.
and then it will give you the different possible relationships. And they'll also tell you how likely these relationships are. And okay.
I think that's different because we haven't shown, you want to show them the beta version?
Sure.
I think that's why it's looking different to you. 'Cause
Okay.
I didn't
Okay. Yeah. So I wanted to mention that if you just go into this shared Centimorgan project tool, and if you Google that, you'll come up with it.
Yeah.
The statistics it uses give you results like we just showed. But there's also what is a beta version of this tool that's got some updated statistics. And the link to that is on the left-hand side at the bottom.
Yeah.
And Lisa, I think I was saying, like, why isn't this just the one they use? Because this seems better. But Lisa had a really good point that she just made before we started, which was it's labeled as a beta tool.
Which means it's still under review, I guess, is the best way to, still kind of experimental. But you can see it looks different.
And also, if you're testing on Ancestry, they'll give you these kind of statistics now. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't sure where the person had tested, which is why right away what I do is I go to this tool and I look and see, well, what are the possible relationships and what are their likelihoods? So, and at the top, it lists a lot of different possible relationships, starting out with great great aunt or uncle, half great aunt or uncle, and so on. But I think what is interesting in terms of, if you think about the context of the question, is that half first cousin is next. And if this match shared a mystery grandfather with her, then he or she, the match, would be a half first cousin.
Okay.
And then if we go down to the next group, which is, so that there's a 62% chance that this person is, I would assume, is a half first cousin.
Okay.
And then in that next grouping, there's a 36% chance that this match is a half first cousin once removed.
Okay.
Meaning one of your grandparents is the other one's great grandparents.
Gotcha.
So let's say it's her mystery grandfather's great grandchild. Mm-hmm. That the match is one generation down from this common ancestor.
Okay.
So, not knowing more and assuming that that I'm understanding the question correctly, mm-hmm. I would say that this match should be a huge help in terms of figuring out, if she's got an unknown grandfather, mm-hmm. that I would look at this person's tree and look to see who their grandfathers and their great grandfathers are.
Okay.
And see, is one of them the same age as her grandmother? Did they live in the same place as the grandmother? Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. And, hopefully they have a tree, or they're willing to reach out, or you can possibly build their tree for them.
Right.
But, I think this match is super promising.
Oh, good. Well, that is wonderful. I don't know if Margaret's actually listening or not, but hopefully she'll catch the replay. If not, and she'll be able to pick that up. So that'd be great.
Okay.
And I'll put hang on, guys, I was going to put the link to that DNA for that DNA shared Cinnamore program there as well, so you can see that. I'll pop that into the chat, guys. Hang on one second. Let me grab that, and then we can do. We have definitely have some questions in the comments, so we'll do as many as we can get to. All right, so there's the DNA Painter link coming in, guys. So there you have that. All right, I know going back up here, Amy had a question about, she's heard the word haplogroup, but has no idea what it means. So, and I have a feeling she's probably not the only one.
Right. And so haplogroup is a kind or a label that is used for Y DNA and also for mitochondrial DNA.
Okay.
And so I had mentioned in that question before that somebody was an I haplogroup. That's his Y DNA haplogroup. And then other relatives were the Q haplogroup. It's kind of like ABO blood types, except there are a lot more types. And I was trying not to use the word type because a haplotype is different. We have Y DNA haplotypes, and those are defined by STR markers, which are short tandem repeats, which are just little, let's say 3 base long sequences of DNA that get repeated. So let's say we have CAC. So, one person might have 10 of these CAC units, and somebody might have 12. And they're present on our DNA, including Y DNA, and they're passed down in the Y DNA. And that means that the person passing them down and the person receiving them almost always has the same number of repeats. But occasionally there are errors, and you'll add 1 or you'll delete 1. And then there are, the companies test anywhere from 37 to, I would say, over 500 of these markers. And it's a way of finding those Y people related to us on the Y line with, as you can imagine, if they're passed down virtually unchanged or with only minor changes, we can use them to trace our Y DNA line, the ancestors on the Y DNA line.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So she has a question. Amy had a question about her DNA matches that she is a Drown, DROWN, by birth, but she only matches one Drown who is a known first cousin. Yet there are many of these families that are coming down from the original progenitor. So why doesn't she have other matches showing up? Is that a testing issue? or a numbers issue, I guess.
Yeah, right. Well, one thing is that our trees, if you think about, your mom's side or your dad's side, I guess we're talking about her dad's side, since she said she was born with this surname, right? And that typically children get their father's surname. And but if you think about your tree, that father's surname line of your tree is that, the one line of your tree, like we've talked about the book, right? Your Y DNA is here, your mitochondrial DNA line is here, and you open it up and you've got, your father's mother, your father's mother's father, all those branches that go in the middle of the book that are like the pages. And all of a sudden you've got, 4 surnames when it comes to all of your grandparents. You've got 8 surnames when it comes to your great grandparents,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so on, 256, and you
Yeah.
keep on going. And so it's not surprising that your matches, when you, especially at the kind of 3rd to 5th cousins,
Mm-hmm.
it's
They're
not
not
surprising
showing.
that they don't share your surname.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. All right, Catherine has a question. She says she has 5 DNA matches to a possible half-fourth cousins. Half-fourth cousins. Okay. 4 descending from different children of a son of the probable 3rd great-grandmother, and 1 descending from her daughter. I hope you're reading this because this is long. Are these sufficient to accept as reliable, or would she need matches from descendants of each of the other 2 children?
I would say, any evidence you have,
Mm-hmm.
right? You've got a birth certificate, you've got a death certificate,
Mm-hmm.
you've got, whatever you've got. That is a piece of evidence
Mm-hmm.
that you are going to combine with other pieces of evidence in order to support a hypothesis that explains the evidence. So there's no like specific rules about needing these different descendants, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there aren't any living descendants.
Right.
And up until recently it was debated whether a reasonably comprehensive search had to include DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think today, especially the DNA people like me would say you cannot have a complete analysis unless you have some DNA evidence to back up
Mm-hmm.
your hypothesis.
Right.
So, it's just that, like going out into the forest and you collect whatever you can find. And, I have an ancestor and all of her vital records have a man that her mother married when she was 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And, does that prove, everyone's always like, does that prove, right? Does that prove that he was her father? Like, well, like,
Yeah.
I don't think so. And, when I look at the DNA and I look at where she's born, which is Canada, he's a German man that came to Wisconsin, never in Canada that I can see. Like, I could say like, well, my tree's perfect. It's very well documented.
Right.
But that's not right.
Yeah. It's the analysis. When you analyze that record, you realize that, yeah, they weren't there. So Melora has a question about ideas for IDing parents via DNA of a great grandmother, only have her first name. So she's trying to find the great great grandparents, I guess, of her great grandmother she only knows the first name. I think I have something similar to this, Melora. And then she does go on to talk about where her dad has tested as well. So, yeah. So how do you go about doing it when if you're looking at that point? I think kind of tackle that first part when you only have the first name.
Right. And I think it's great that you have your dad because he's one generation closer to the mystery. So it's not his second great grandparent; it's his great grandparent.
Mm-hmm.
If I followed that.
Yeah.
And so having, looking at going back to being able to identify your known matches.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you've got a set of unknown matches. And, for him, a missing great grandparent
Mm-hmm.
would be like a second cousin, right? You share with your second cousins, you share a set of great grandparents. And, looking at those matches, who are the unknowns, who might come from this mystery in the tree, that's how I would be looking at it.
Right. That makes sense. Okay.
And, also thinking about if it's a great grandparent, then are there looking at the shared matches to his known first cousins,
Okay.
right? So one generation closer in time.
Mm-hmm.
So that the shared matches come from one of the two couples, one generation, one of the two great grandparent couples,
Okay.
right? One generation above, or be older than the common grandparents. So being able to fish out those unknowns using some of the known matches.
Okay. Yeah, there are no first cousins for her dad, she says.
Okay. Or so possibly then none, nobody like that you could use.
Yeah.
Or, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Dad's connection on the husband's side goes back 2 more generations. Hopefully the dad also has the wife's side. Okay. Sorry, guys. These things, the comments are flying by fast. It's hard to catch. It's hard to catch. They start flying by. Yeah. So there are no other first cousins for her dad to research. All right. Back to that question that Catherine had on those fourth half cousins. She said there's only documentary information on the children of that second marriage, but none of the findable for the children of the first marriage that she descends from. Yeah. So she hasn't been able to define that. That's been a longstanding problem for Catherine, I know. An issue. All right. Help me look through. Am I missing any comments here? I think we got most everything. Some of these, yeah, I think we got it all. Oh, so Amy says, what would you use for other countries? Because you were talking about, you were making reference to the family, the question with the husband, one of the parents was from Holland, and the ancestry. You recommended checking the testing with ancestry, even though they were not, they were overseas. Is there one that's better than others when we're looking for, say, non-U.S. DNA results? Is there one that you recommend?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I know, but
right. It's MyHeritage, because it is a European country, and their customers are European, and they existed long before they started offering DNA testing.
Yeah.
So, and they let you sort your matches based on where they live.
Yes.
So that's a really cool feature.
That's a real helpful feature, definitely. Yeah. There had been a question about the been verified and about, and Catherine, you had said that, you had told us what it was, and Catherine shared that it is actually, they have a trial for $5 and that you can use. And then let me go back up and see, Catherine, how long that free trial is, that then you can cancel afterwards, I guess. Let me get back up to that. Hang on. I know it's in here somewhere. Again, that one flew by. But yes, so there is a free trial that you can do that's a little less expensive to check it out to see if it's something you're going to use. So an initial trial. I'm not quite sure how long it's for, but you can do a less expensive version. So thank you, Catherine, for letting us know that there is that less expensive option to try things out. And I like, to be able to have like either a free trial or one like this. It's just like a $5 trial kind of thing, because it does let you kind of kick the tires, so to speak, and see if it's something that's going to work for you. It's something that people want to do. So anyway,
right. And sometimes, like that the example I mentioned, where I thought like, oh, this is going to be so easy to find this guy. His name was pretty unique. you get surprised.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I mean, if somebody's name is really common, and but you might know, like, maybe you know how old they are because they have that on their ancestry profile or their 23andMe profile. And if you're lucky, they say where they live, or you might have a really good feel for where they live based on the shared matches. Like everybody's from one place in North Carolina. Like, even if I get 20 names, I'm gonna go to the people who live in North Carolina first.
Yes. Yes.
So it's yeah.
Yeah.
I should have an affiliate relationship with them.
You really should.
I'm always like,
you really should.
It's the best. It's
All
the
right.
best.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for sharing with us today for the questions, and really appreciate it. Says you can even just put in an address if you haven't definitely ever been verified. You can just put in that address.
Right.
All right. Or Google too.
Right. Well, thank you, Lisa.
Oh, you're welcome. Guys, I have put in the comment sections a link to DNA Hunters, Mary's website. So if you need extra help, Mary is researcher extraordinaire. I'd love to do it. So thank you so much. We'll see you guys next month for another DNA chat. And have a fantastic day, guys. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.